just what's the injury situation? Because obviously losing Cooper at Kansas certainly knew he was not there. Has he got a shot? We don't know anything about Sama either. He hasn't played much lately.
Yeah,
So.
no, I think just a boo situation is certainly not, injury related. I think just a matter of a lot of competition back there right now, and those guys are playing really good football, and just to find the consistency. Obviously, we got great belief in Abu, and just keep getting better, and I think you'll continue to see him throughout the football season. And I think Coop certainly got the ability to be able to play in this game. He was able to be on the field today. Certainly looks a lot better today than he did last week, and we'll just evaluate that. And I know I said this last week. We're going to make sure he's 100% healthy before we bring him back on the field, because I don't want this to be a situation that obviously puts him in a situation to not re-injure himself or be out for longer. So, but I feel a lot more confident about it today than I did certainly where we were last week. Yeah, it's lower leg right now, and, just trying to make sure that it's fully back, especially with him having to run at that position. But, like I said, I think looked a lot better than maybe where we thought he was going to be, even at the end of last week. I think there was even a thought last week that maybe he would be able to get out there last week and wasn't. But, hopefully we'll have him back ready to rock and roll. But, again, got some guys in the football game last week. They'll only continue to grow and get better for us, too.
What's at 8:30, 9:30? I don't know what time it is. It's a game that starts too late. What does
for you and Coach Haycock? Yes, yes, yes.
Start calling your teacher.
Yeah, yes.
He says the same stuff. What? You distracted me. What kind of is that problematic?
I don't think
for
so.
The team?
No, I don't. Honestly, I think, man, if I would go back to 18 to 22 years old, by the time 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock came on, it's kind of prime time. So, I feel like kids enjoy playing night games. I honestly, to play at this, in this environment, there's so much history and prestige at BYU. And, I'll be honest with you, I think we're all just really we're honored and excited to be able to go play in this venue and against this opponent. So just really excited for our first time out there and to be at night. I know it's going to be a great environment. We look forward to it.
It sounds like a few position coaches have mentioned to their rooms how successful BYU is under the lights and at home specifically. Mm-hmm. What do you make of that, and does it give you guys a little extra motivation? Have you used it for your team?
Yeah, I don't know if it's extra motivation. I just think it's a reality of, this team's undefeated at home this year. You know how special this place is to play and what they've made it over the history of the last 30 to 40 years. And, the honor, for me growing up as a kid, I remember watching the ESPN games at night, and you'd watch Lavelle Edwards and you'd watch this BYU team, and you were just in awe of how they operated and the precision and detail. And, I've got the utmost the respect for their head football coach right now. I said if I had, my sons, I'd be honored for them to play for him. And, just a lot of respect for what this program's about. We know we'll get their best shot in how they play the game, and it's going to be a great opportunity, but a great challenge for this team.
You mentioned the kickoff time maybe not being a challenge. Is the altitude a challenge, or is that something that you guys are preparing for, or will have any extra equipment for?
Yeah, I don't think so. We played, when we were at Toledo, we played at Wyoming, which was, a really high altitude. I know a lot of our staff have played at Utah or BYU before, and, I don't think it's so much in-game. I think it's probably how you do a great job recovering post-game. So, we'll just have to do a great job of it, part of it, but not something that I'm concerned about.
And then speaking about the tight ends a little bit, Steve Clotz is someone who's kind of come on here in the last couple of weeks. What do you think has kind of led to his emergence amongst a pretty crowded room?
Yeah, he really kind of came on last fall camp a year ago. Had a really great fall camp, played really meaningful snaps last year for this football team. And then I thought really did a great job piggybacking the success he had a year ago into, honestly, really a great fall. Great spring, great fall camp this year, and really is a guy that is trusted as any one of our players in our program. I think what he does for this team on special teams and does all the hard stuff on offense, and he's just a guy that is such a key piece to our success, but a guy that's played great football for us and has got the respect to everybody in our football program. How he works, how he goes about his business, pretty special.
Matt, there are two quarterbacks, Retzloff and Slovis. How are they different, and do you have to get ready for both?
Yeah, I think you do. You know, I think the one thing that both of them have the ability to do, though, is they've got the ability to get the ball to their elite skill playmakers. And I mean, they've had multiple people play at the wide receiver position this year, you know, and they've gone through some injuries. And it's like the next guy that they put in continues to be uberly impressive. And, you know, across the board, they got great team speed on the outside at their skill positions. They got great size. Just really impressed with their playmakers on the outside. And I think back to your question, both of these quarterbacks have the ability to get the ball in space to these guys. You know, Slovis obviously really was doing some great things before he got injured. You know, last week, you know, young quarterback, first time really in this system. I know he played a lot in junior college, but in this system, getting to play, and you could see as the game went on, his confidence continued to grow. And I thought by the fourth quarter, started to settle in and really look good. So, you know, both guys, I think, can certainly beat you with their arm, and there's enough athleticism in there as well that those guys can make you miss with their feet too.
They've got a couple guys at linebacker that kind of jump off the film, video, tape, whatever you want to call it, as well. Just experience, production, good in all phases. Can you talk about the challenge those guys pose?
Yeah, and you know, I really think it starts a little bit with their defensive front. You know, those two ends, you know, and there's a rotation of about three of them. They've got great size, great length. Man, they're physical at the point of attack, and then I think it trickles down to the second level. And that second level, those guys can run. I think the one thing that they've got across the board is size and athleticism, where their length can be a factor. You know, they get their hands on a lot of balls. You know, they're really physical at the point of attack, and you know, they present a great challenge because of that. And then again, a lot of experience. There's guys that have played a lot of football. You know, both age and playing experience. But yeah, they'll be a good factor there, and I think their size and athleticism certainly stick out from the film.
I know you always say we probably get tired of hearing how precision and detail are required to win games at Iowa State, but I'm going to go ahead and ask you a question about it. How has a young group, A, been challenging to get them to understand that, and B, flashed at times this year may be better than, you know, some of the teams in recent memory?
Yeah, you know, I think the great thing is they understand it, and they're straining to be their best in the moment. And I think what we've grown from, at least this year, is we understand that it is precision and detail that it takes to win. And, you know, it's winning those critical moments. And when we've won the games, we've mastered, or you felt like the consistency of those moments, we've been able to win. And, you know, when you didn't, you look and you're like, dang it. I mean, we can go back to last week's game. There's some incredible plays made by our kids, and then, you know, you flip it on the other side, and, man, you feel like we're a fingertip away from making the play or that play. And, you know, I think the global piece of it is there's still great teaching moments. And, you know, as I said before the start of the football season, my whole thing is we're going to be relentless on the process that it takes to be successful. The results will take care of themselves. And, you know, it's what we talked about even on Sunday. And I think our kids understand it. And unfortunately, sometimes you have to understand it with the pain of a loss and the thrill of a victory. But our kids haven't wavered from how they practice. I thought, again, today, you know, I thought last week we had the best 2-3 days of practice we've had all year. And to be able to do that in November, I think says a lot about this group and their understanding of that value, and even how we came out to practice today. So those are all encouraging for me.
We talked to Steve-O, and he talked a lot about how credited Jared Russ for how he's come along. And I remember Jared talking a lot about seeing Buckner about that position. And just what's been the development of that position and the sustainability of it when it's not the sexiest position or the most in-trend position in football right now?
Yeah, and I think that's what I love about our program is we have about 15 to 20 guys a year that I would say are the glue of why we win games. You know, you go over the history of the Davids and the Breeses and the Brocks, and they all deserve a lot of credit. But I would say along all those teams, there's been the Steve-O Clotzes along the way that have been the pillar of why we sprung the big run, or why we've been great on a kickoff return, a Kane kickoff return, or a Jalen kick return, or, you know, it's doing all the hard things that nobody really sees. And I think our kids' commitment to that right now in our football program is probably at an all-time high. that position in general is hard because you got to do things that are really hard to do. You got to lead block on a linebacker. You got to, come across the line of scrimmage and block a defensive end. And, those take a mentally and physically tough guy to be able to do that for 12, 13, 14 games. And obviously when you talk about Sam and talk about Jared and now you talk about Steve-O, they kind of all had that trait, all former linebackers that kind of grew into this position. And, we look for those guys. There's a couple guys even right now in our program we talk about here even over the bye week of, man, maybe these guys are the next that guy in our football program. And so we kind of try to recruit to it and, see where guys filter and then always try to evaluate our system of how do we put those kids in a position to help our team win.
I mean, just in terms of Steve-O and Russ, and I don't remember Sam as much. I'm getting old, and that was a long time ago. But is there a profile for those guys? Is there a profile where, I mean, these last two guys, former walk-ons, where just to find a spot on the field to do the things you just described, that it takes a certain type of guy and player?
Yeah, I think so for sure. And again, I think that's something that, and you've heard me say this a million times, the more guys that we have playing and we can find a role in our program, I still believe the better our football team is going to be. The more, we can, that those guys can go in, and if it's 15, 20 plays, and I think right now you got, I think of a guy like John Klosterman. Like, you guys don't really know John Klosterman, but man, John Klosterman's block Saturday on Jalen's kick return, Saturday at Cincinnati on the kick return. He's had 3 solo tackles the last 3 weeks on kickoff, and John's like this tough, physical kid who's just like demanded to play on our football team, a redshirt freshman. And, I think we do. We take so seriously the young men that we bring in our program because I still feel like for us, man, you only get 130 spots. We know there's going to be injuries, and how many of these guys can we find critical roles and really find ownership in a win or a loss? Because I still feel like, man, if you're owning what's happening on the field on Saturday, you're going to stay invested whether we win or lose. You're going to come back on Sunday and want to get better for the betterment of the team. And so I think those things are big. I just think it's critical to the success of a college football team.
Coach, do you know Steve-O's real first name?
Well, Steve-O, no. So I'm going with Steve-O. What is it? Am I wrong?
I asked him. Yeah, it's Stevenson.
Stevenson, yes. So no, you got me.
Steve-O, fun to say. It's more fun, isn't it?
It's way more fun. Yeah, and we used to call him the pizza guy because we kind of felt like he looked like the pizza. We had the shaggy hair, and he kind of looked like the pizza, like the random pizza guy that would come to the door at times. So that was even funner to say than Steve-O.
I love it. You guys don't seem like you're a very tight bunch, but is there a little more pressure being that you didn't get it done against Kansas and where you want to be at the end of the season in the Big 12 standings?
Yeah, I think there's always pressure in our sport, and I think the more success you have, it becomes a little bit of a privilege. But, I think our kids fully understand the value of one day at a time, continue to grow forward. And at the end of the day, we'll evaluate, did we become the team that we had the ability to become? And the great thing about this young group is even Saturday, as disappointing as it was not to win the football game, you saw a lot of areas really grow forward. And for that, we're really proud of what this group's about so far.
Matt, given that this may follow in line with Scott's question, but given the youth of your team, what would bowl eligibility mean for those kids?
I just think it's another huge milestone forward. I think there's milestones in a football season and in a journey that you look at and you just say, man, those are things that tell you you're going in the right direction. Win the first game. Man, can you win 2 in a row? Can you win on the road? Man, can you get to 6 wins in college football? There's all these little milestones along the way that are just great milestones for any football program that you want to be able to celebrate. That doesn't define success at the end of the year or failure, but it certainly gives you a guidance on who you are and where you're going. And, again, for this young football team to grow forward, especially the growth in a lot of areas we've been able to make from a year ago and, where we need to continue to grow forward to. I still think a lot of great things out there for this team right now to continue to grow and get better.
Were you able to spend any time with Brock Purdy last week?
Yeah, I got home on Saturday night and, boy, I thought everybody'd be as upset as I was, but my boys, they didn't know if we won or lost the game because they were playing catch with Brock for like 20 minutes after the game. So, I think it was great to have Brock back. I got to spend a little bit of time with him on Thursday, and, to me, I know I said this when that group left here, but to hear the crowd and to hear the reception he got back here, and I think people understanding what he did for this university, certainly what he's done for our football program, man, I couldn't be more grateful that he wanted to be back here on his bye week, come back here and be able to experience that on Saturday. That was a thrill for me, and I couldn't be prouder of him. So got to spend a little bit of time with him, but the Campbell boys got to spend the most time with him, and that was a great win for them for the weekend. So yeah, they're good. No, he did not talk about farming. So he may have talked to them about farming, but he did not talk to me about farming. But I'm glad he got some tranquility and some time on out there. So good for him. All right, guys, take care.